Welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. My name is Luening, Horst Luening. I'm the master taster of Whisky.com, and today we have the FAQ number 13. So 13, well, every month there's a FAQ video here on my channel, Whisky.com, and so I'm on the air over a year with these FAQs. This time I will talk a little bit about our newsletter and a question from the forum if whiskies were better in former times when everything was worse. First, the newsletter. We started the newsletter I think last December, and there are a few, I think 6 newsletters out now, and this newsletter is coming out by mail. So you have to register on our website, Whisky.com, for the newsletter, and then we send it to you roughly in the middle of the month. And this newsletter contains always a story, a written story, 2 pages, sometimes 1.5, sometimes 3 pages, about a special theme. And over the summer, I was a little bit lazy and sent out the newsletter only every second month. But in the cold season, where the interest in whiskey is higher than normal, then I will send it out every month. So the next one is coming up next week or the week after, and it will discuss the very special times today where there are some dangers and uncertainties about whiskey. There's the Brexit of the United Kingdom from the European Community. There's the presidential elections in the US. How will this influence the world? And then there is the long-awaited decision of the Fed, how the interest rate may raise, and we will leave the zero interest rate times and going for higher interest rates, which will influence the all of the societies around the world. This decision of the Fed is one of the most important in the world, and for our whiskey as well. There had been a question in the forum if classic whiskies were better than the ones today. Well, it depends. In former times, there was a lot of manual work in the distillery. Typically, you moved the supplies a little bit up to the mountain, and then the gravity helped to move down, to lead the liquids down to the warehouses, and the warehouses were down at the road or at the railway, where you can easily ship it to the customer. And everything was manual work, and it started with the maltings, and there you had this manual work with a shovel to turn the barley, to bring air inside the barley, so that you have no mold in the barley. And you had this ape shoulder, which was very, very hard for this manual, always repeating labor. So people were sometimes, and I'm not angry about that, a little bit lazy, did less work than they should. So the quality of the barley was uneven, at least. Then you put the barley in the fermentation, and the fermentation, it fermented, and from time to time there were some vinegar bacteria coming in, and the wash turned sour, and it was sour. We distilled it despite that, and this batch moved into the whiskey as well, the final product. And I got some single malt from 84 from Bruichladdich. I think it has a pH value of 3.5, so it was definitely from a vinegar poisoned batch. Long ago, you would be happy to find Bruichladdich from 1984. So people put hops into the beer, because the beer turned sour as well in former times when it was a little bit warmer. And some whiskies in the US, I think, still contain some hops from, out of historic reasons. People remember the taste, they stay to the taste. But today, you typically have covered wash bags where the CO2 fills all the room and bacteria have less chances to enter. But there are some, wooden wash bags. They look fancy and really classic and wonderful. And people say, well, there's an influence on the taste by this. I think it's pine, pine wood. Cedar, pine. And in former times you had to go into, after emptying the wash bags, you had to go into it, have a lot of chemicals to clean it up so that the bacteria in the walls of the wood were deactivated, were killed. And the wood of the wash bag has no influence on the whiskey in terms of taste, because the smaller a cask is, those small quarter casks, the better a whiskey matures, the faster a whiskey matures, and the bigger the cask is, the less the quotient, the ratio between the inner surface and the contained liquid is. So the bigger a cask is, the slower the maturation takes place, and a whiskey matures for years in a cask, and this huge big vats, they are in 5 days, the longest. So there's no influence of the wood on the whiskey, only through potential bacteria, and that's bad. So they switched over in modern times to stainless steel vessels, closed, and every now and then they heat it up for disinfection. So there's no need for cleaning, for say chemical substances to clean for tensids and so on. You do it by heat, and that's a good thing. I saw that at the early times distillery when they heated up those fermenters. Then you're going to the stills. In former times, there are some bricks, foundations for the stills, and there was the hole where you added the coal or the peat for firing the stills. And it was really difficult to fire up the stills and to keep the fire on a stable energy level for cooking the wash. From time to time, the fire was too hot. The the wash was boiling very heavily, and because whenever this wash boiled over the line arm into the condenser, you had to open up everything and clean it, and it was a bad work. And so what did they do? Well, they took soap. They took powdered Kurtz soap, a few shovels in the wash still, and cooked it so that the surface tension was broken by the soap, and there were no bubbles on top of it, and they kept the level low, and so they could burn heavily and hindered the overcooking. And from time to time they cooked even by adding soap too strong, and it boiled over as well. And then the soap came, why waste that whiskey? We matured it as well, and in the whole batch for the blend, no problem. And from time to time people say, oh, this whiskey tastes a little soapy. Not for me. I don't like whiskey, it's so soapy. So it was times where there was no electronic control or computer control of the cooking process in a still. So, the old time, they knew exactly what to... No, they didn't know exactly what to do. When the master stillman was away, there were some apprentices. They really didn't know knew what they did. Yeah. So today I'm happy that they changed that, and there's still some direct fired stills in production. I think Glenfiddich and Macallan. But typically today they are fired by natural gas, and the inner surface of the still, of the pot, the lower part of the still, it's thicker and it's hotter than normal to bring the heat transfer. The others have steam pipes or steam cylinders inside for heating the wash, so they have to transfer it through the walls, and therefore the residue of the peel of the corn stucks to the walls, and you need a rummager. It's a chain, a woven chain, together with a gear, and you see electric motor on the still. You can see it at information pages. No, at the Whisky database on Whisky.com. When you go to Glenfiddich, and there's the Glenfiddich distillery, click on the distillery, and there are pictures. There you can see the hall with the huge number of stills, one after each other, and there you see the electric motors for turning the rummagers. Glenfarclas as well. And then you have the double thick size of the still. Why? Well, the rummager is grinding down the copper of the still, and we have more copper in the whiskey. And this is, well, on one hand it's good because there's this catalytic conversion of the sharp substances in the faints. And on the other hand, well, copper is a more heavy metal, and it's also used in no poison in the agriculture for hindering the wrong crops to grow. So they did a study at the University of Aberdeen looking after metals, trace metals in whiskies, and they did not find too much of copper. No, good notice or good outcome of the study, but a little bit of of the brass from the spirit safes and sample safes. So today the process is much more under control, and it's the outcome is really stable. The processes are in place. Computers are controlling that, and the stills are cleaned automatically. There's no need that somebody is going into the stills and putting out the pot ale. So everything is rinsed and done. So the outcome is more stable. Then it goes into the casks. There's a difference. There are some stills which still have those warm tubs. This is a copper spiral for condensing the alcoholic vapors, mostly placed outside the distillery. So Mortlach, Glenelgin, Dalwhinnie, if I think about that, there will be some more. And they have more copper contact during the condensing process. So the whiskey is a little smoother after that. The others have those industry condensers, most often from stainless steel, so the copper contact is less. The US invented the doubler for that reason, out of copper, for bringing more copper contact. Then it goes into the casks, and the casks were, mediocre in the past. They used casks. Well, there are casks. We fill the casks. How old are the casks? No idea. No. Then some knowledgeable people said, we paint the ends of the casks depending how often the casks are used. If you look at the pictures of Balblair Distillery, there are some pictures from inside the warehouses. There you can see red, white, blue ends of casks. This is the coloring scheme of Balblair, but from time to time those casks were moved to the cooperage and then moved further on to other distilleries, and those other distilleries did not know which color scheme this particular cask were in. So they didn't know, one time used, two times used, how often. So they moved on with the cask, and there was no real cask management, and therefore only 5 to 10% of the casks turned out to be good, so they were selected for single malt. And today you have the coloring scheme ended, and Glenmorangie, for instance, they stopped using casks 3 times, and now they're only using them 2 times. And they stopped the coloring scheme, and too expensive, and the color. Yeah, so they have some barcoding on it. Staple, bum bum, barcode in it, barcode scanner, and every cask has its own history. You know how often it is used, was used, and then you kick it off. You dump it for other purposes. So the cask management is excellent, really excellent, and so most of the whiskies turn out to be very good. Well, that does not mean that the 5 to 10%, especially selected whiskies in former times, were better than the mass production of whiskies today. Might be that they were better if they look carefully for the better casks, and you had to have a good a good fermentation, a good distillation, and a good cask, and that all 3 were ideal, or malting, fermentation, distillation, cask. So if one of those 4 failed, the whole whiskey failed. So it was only a very small amount, and I'm not quite sure if they really tasted every cask to find out the best ones. So there might have been some very excellent whiskies among those old ones, but today the average is a lot better because of all those optimization tasks done over the past decades. But industry learned that there is more money in the market. So if you have a mass-produced whiskey like the Ardbeg 10 or the Ardbeg Uigedail, 40 to 60 euros, pounds, dollars, then there is enough room for more expensive bottles. So there's a bottling every year, a special bottling from not better casks, different casks, where you have a different quality, and most often this quality is seen as better. And then they prices around 90 to 150, depending on the market and the demand. So there's, again, the mass production, which is affordable, and those excellent, which are not affordable, which are quite expensive. And in former times, the bad whiskey, went into the blends, and there was a huge amount of blends, cheap blends on the market. And people stayed to that, and there were very few selected single malt, incredibly expensive, because in former times the income was not half, it was a fourth, a fifth, a sixth of today, and the price was nearly equal. So very difficult. And today we looked at the Dalwhinnie, 15 years old, from the Dalwhinnie distillery, and it's kept the price over the last 20 years. So all the optimization in the process, the saved money, was given to the people. So today, close to everybody is able to buy a bottle of Dalwhinnie. In former times, it was from the leftover from your monthly income, where the rent and food and clothing was off. Then a bottle of Dalwhinnie would have been a third of the leftover from the income. And today, well, it's a takeaway bottle, not too expensive, no. But the very rare selected bottles from Dalwhinnie as well, there's a 29-year-old on the market, well, that's expensive, really. So this takes away a lot of your available income. So in the whole, I would say the affordable whiskey became better a lot, and the selected whiskey is on the same level as it was before, plus minus, and it's on the same incredible price level as it was before. So if you select a 20-year-old sherry cask matured Artbeck, Lefroy, Lagavulin, then you pay 300, 400, 600. So it's incredibly expensive. Yeah, and for the average household, this is half of the available income or more, even more. And in former times, a whiskey bottle for £40 was impossible to buy for the average person. Yeah. Oh, that's it for today. Quite a long time. So I keep the third theme over for the next time. And this is about the supply of sherry casks. Yeah, this is quite difficult. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned and feel free to share this video with your friends. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up.